Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into after last night's edition of Monday Night Raw. Not a bad one, in fairness to them. There's a ton of news stories to get into. We'll start off with Roman Reigns, who of course returned to the red brand last night for the first time since 2019. And he got two victories, not just one, two victories last night. WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns made his way to Monday Night Raw and won two matches on last night's episode. He took to Twitter to react to these victories by sending a simple message to the WWE Universe. Now, around 2 years after his previous Monday Night Raw appearance, Reigns returned last night to the red brand for a six-man tag team match against The New Day. Alongside the Usos, Reigns' team, The Bloodline, emerged victorious thanks to some interference from the former almighty WWE champion Bobby Lashley. But that wasn't the only bit of Reigns action we saw last night, because in the main event of Monday Night Raw, the Tribal Chief took on Lashley and the new WWE champion Big E in a triple threat match. He won his second match of the evening, pinning the almighty WWE champion with a spear. Now, with a pair of major victories, the head of the table has cemented his place as the dominant force across both brands in WWE. He tweeted, quote, "My shows, my main events, my universe." Now, it must be said when it comes to Monday Night Raw, because we got a couple of Raw stories coming out of last night's show, it must be said about Raw, you know, it was a good show. It was, as for Monday Night Raw, say it wasn't perfect, and I don't know if we're going to, especially in that 3-hour format, I don't know if we're going to see a perfect episode of Monday Night Raw, but as far as in comparison to what we've seen over the course of not just the last few weeks, but the last 18 months, 2 years, whatever it may be, it felt like a big edition of Raw, didn't it? There was multiple stuff on that show which you could go, that was good. The Big E promo to start the show, the six-man tag to open the show, even the Charlotte Flair Alexa Bliss segment was very good. Of course, you got the main event as well. Randy Orton versus AJ Styles was a really, really good match. And I think that's what people want out of Monday Night Raw. I don't think people are expecting perfection every single week because it's just not going to happen. What we want, I speak for myself here, but I think a lot of people would agree with me, what we want is just to see that WWE are trying. We just want to see that they're trying their best each and every week to put on the best show they possibly can. And I think, you know, from the nuts and bolts of it, from a production point of view, they do. They don't phone that in. But I mean from a creative point of view. Are you delivering the best show that you can? And I think last night was an attempt to improve the quality of the show. Now, has Monday Night Football and AEW Dynamite forced their hand? Absolutely it has. But this idea of they should be criticized for that. Oh, it's just, you know, it's panic booking and it's just, you know, desperation, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's true, but I'm happy for anything to force their hand to put on a better show, for them to be delivering something that we haven't seen recently. And that's an attempt at putting on a quality broadcast. Now, some of the booking decisions, I mean, for that first six-man tag team match, Bobby Lashley just in front of the referee beats the hell out of the New Day and the Bloodline, and the referee just decides just to put his hands up and go, oh, what are you going to do? Reigns gets the spear and wins that one. I was a bit confused by that. I was like, surely the referee would just throw it out, no contest, as if WWE has ever had an issue doing a double disqualification or throwing a no contest for a match. They do it all the time. And then the one time they don't do it, it's like, oh, that was easy. That was easy to do it. So I don't know why they did that. It felt like a show that they really wanted to cement that Roman Reigns is the guy. Roman Reigns is the big guy. So that was what that was. The main event was good. We've seen that in the live events the past week or so. They've been doing that match. So it wasn't a total surprise that they went down that avenue. It was a big match. And it'll be interesting to see if it does deliver when it comes to the ratings this week in terms of viewership and the key demo. I think that Dynamite will win in the key demo anyway this week because it's a huge, huge show with the Grand Slam edition of Dynamite and then Rampage as well on Friday. But you know, this was a good show, and maybe the ratings won't reflect that. Time will tell. I think a big story will be that Reigns was advertised for this show ahead of time, and that's really, in terms of full-time members of the roster, that's the biggest draw they have right now is Roman Reigns. And I think this week, if we see an uptick, certainly in terms of viewership, maybe those lines between Raw and SmackDown might start to get blurred again, which is hilarious because the draft is around the corner, and once again, it just proves that they just can't commit. They just can't commit to a brand split. And at this point, like, I'm not criticizing them. If they are struggling in the ratings, one might think, you know what, just screw it. Just have the biggest stars on both shows, but then you have the problem of how do you then get all of the people onto the right shows, and how do you not have a situation where SmackDown just feels like a continuation of Raw? All that kind of stuff is certainly interesting. But look, I enjoyed Raw. I did enjoy Raw last night for Monday night in comparison to recent Raws, and I credit WWE for at least trying. Even if it's desperation, even if it's whatever it is, I credit them for trying. And it just cemented, once again, Roman Reigns is the guy in WWE. And it doesn't matter if Big E has just won the WWE Championship, which he has, but Roman Reigns is the guy, and that ain't changing anytime soon. Speaking of Roman Reigns, we have an update when it comes to Extreme Rules. He's, of course, defending the Universal Championship this coming Sunday, and we actually have a stipulation. Who would have thought it? We actually have a stipulation for Extreme Rules where most of the matches usually have a stipulation, but this year, none of the matches do. That's the stipulation, is that no matches have stipulations, but we finally have one because WWE has announced that the Demon Finn Balor and the Universal Champion Roman Reigns' match this coming Sunday at Extreme Rules will now be held under Extreme Rules. Like the pay-per-view says, it's going to be an Extreme Rules match. Now, the stipulation was announced after last night's non-title Raw main event, which of course saw Reigns defeat Bobby Lashley and Big E in a triple threat match. So like I said, finally, Extreme Rules actually has a stipulation. I actually wrote an article for Sportskeeda a couple of days ago predicting some of the stipulations for this match because you've got to have at least one match. Like, I guess that's probably their thought process now, WWE, and I don't know if we will get more stipulations announced over the course of the next couple of days. There has been this story in the past that WWE feels like traditionally, you would announce your stuff way, way ahead of time because you'd want people to purchase the pay-per-view. Whereas from WWE's metrics nowadays, they realize that most people are actually searching and talking about the event the day before or on the day. So that's why they do these really late announcements, because that's when people are searching for it and that's when people decide to sign up. They look at their subscriptions to Peacock or previously the WWE Network and they realize actually most people sign up to the network the day of or the day before. So that's when we should announce our stuff. In reality, though, I look at it a different way of going, they just sign up that day because the event's on that day. You still have to sell the event in general to make sure it has some buzz that people are searching for it in the first place. Nevertheless, it looks like at the moment the only match that is going to have some kind of a stipulation at Extreme Rules, the night that WWE goes Extreme, is going to be the main event. Why? I don't know. But maybe we'll get some more stipulations. I hope so. I hope, even if they did it the day of the show. Otherwise, it's just another pay-per-view. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. But it's an Extreme Rules match. No doubt it's going to be a good match, but Reigns is winning. If anything, it just opens the door for the Usos to get involved, which will probably allow Reigns to win and try to protect Finn Balor, the Demon, because Reigns is facing Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship at Crown Jewel. That's happening. That's happening. And if there's anyone that thinks that Finn Balor is going to win the Universal Championship this coming Sunday, you need to have your head checked because it's just not happening. Let's move on. Talk about, technically, not Monday Night Raw, but what happened before Monday Night Raw last night, and that's Keith Lee. He's got a new nickname. Now, of course, Keith Lee's been doing a lot of dark matches, hasn't he, over the course of the last few weeks, as WWE tries to tweak his character, find a gimmick, because everyone needs gimmick, because it's 1995, guys. To find a gimmick for Keith Lee, and I think importantly as well, get his legs back under him. Of course, he had so much time out of the ring because of his illness, and during that period of time, he couldn't even train, couldn't even exercise. So he's trying to get back into some kind of ring shape, which is why they're doing this, but also try and find a gimmick. Like Keith Lee needs one, but they're doing that before all of Monday Night Raws and Smackdowns in recent weeks. But last night, Keith Lee debuted a new nickname before this week's edition of Raw from the PNC Arena in Raleigh. Now, Keith Lee won a squash match over a local enhancement talent before Monday Night Raw and was announced as Keith Bearcat Lee. Now, Keith Lee being introduced as Bearcat was floating around on social media, and a lot of people were instantly upset by this. Instantly upset. I can't believe they're doing this. What a stupid nickname. Keith Lee being called Bearcat, he doesn't need a nickname. He's limitless. Why does he need that? First of all, calm down. Calm down about that one, because it's been speculated, and I think this is probably the case, that the Bearcat nickname is actually a reference to Bearcat Wright, who was a popular African-American pro wrestler from the 1950s and 1960s, who was posthumously inducted into the WWE's Hall of Fame Legacy Wing in 2017. The nickname could, of course, be a reference to Bearcat Brown, an innovative African-American wrestler who worked mainly in the Memphis area in the 1960s and 70s. I think it's probably a reference to Bearcat Wright. He was actually actually, I think he was one of the first, if not the first, African-American world champion in wrestling history as well. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal taking on that mantle and taking on that nickname. So people can get angry, but I think the moment that they realize actually the history and gravity of that nickname, they'll be like, man, that's pretty damn cool actually, which is what I thought. So people that are getting angry about it, calm down. We'll have to wait and see. Look, and I know it probably sounds like I'm being very hypocritical there because I don't trust WWE's creative team. I don't. And I absolutely think we could see Keith Lee coming out as the Funkasaurus next week and doing a Brodus Clay. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that could happen. It's WWE. That's the creative team right now. And like I said, it is 1995. We saw someone on NXT last week do a vignette like it was not even 95, like 1990. And it was going to be like, I'm in the mob, I'm in the mafia, and I'm from Chicago. That's a gimmick, and I'm going to go to NXT because there's more money there. That's what they're doing right now in WWE. So I wouldn't rule that out at all, really at all. But in reality, we'll have to wait and see. The better and the quicker that Keith Lee is back on television is a good thing. Keith Lee's been growing his beard out recently. Led some people think he's going to turn heel. He's going to have a new gimmick. Time will tell. Time will tell. But the quicker that Keith Lee gets back, the better. I think he'd be a great feud for Big E if he does turn heel. Absolutely. Big E's going to need heel opponents that aren't Bobby Lashley on Monday Night Raw, and Keith Lee could be one of them. Or, and I think this might be the more realistic situation here when it comes to Keith Lee, is that he just might be doing these dark matches until the draft in October. He gets drafted to either Raw, SmackDown, and then the Keith Lee push starts. The important thing to think here, I suppose, is that if Vince McMahon is behind Keith Lee's new character or gimmick change, he's got a chance. Because he hasn't been behind Keith Lee so far. If it's a Vince McMahon creation, he might be behind it. So that's what we've got to hope for, I suppose. Let's switch gears here and talk about Ric Flair. Of course, Ric Flair's been in the news significantly after the Dark Side of the Ring episode last week. Now, WWE Hall of Famer Ric Flair has been receiving backlash after the Dark Side of the Ring episode on the infamous Plane Ride from Hell from May 2002, which aired last Thursday on Vice. And Ric Flair has released a statement last night. Now, he released technically two. And it was interesting because it started off by him starting the statement, and I'll read the statement here, but it started off releasing the statement saying that his lawyer and his publicist told him not to post it, but he did, which was bizarre. Then he posted the same statement, but without the publicist and lawyer part, which was very odd. Nevertheless, this is what Ric Flair had to say, quotes, "Every person that I've worked with, from my lawyer to my publicist to my friends, have said not to post a response, but I've never run from my past behaviors before, and I'm not going to start now. I want to clarify a few things. About 4 years ago, I gave ESPN full access to my life for a 30 for 30 special. They covered taxes, financial issues, adultery, divorces, the passing of my child, and a drinking/partying at length. Rory Kampf, desperate for a matter of another 15 minutes, did an interview about it this morning." I think he's referring to an interview he did with Wrestling Inc. "When Rory's lips are moving, he's typically lying, but one part of what he said was the God's honest truth." And this is what the quote from Rory Camp said, quote, "I'd never heard that he'd forced someone to touch his genitals. Everything with Rick that was construed as negative, I tried to address in the 30 for 30, his drinking, his philandering, his adultery, his money problems. There's quite a bit, but never, at least to the people that I spoke to, no one ever brought up that he would force himself on anybody." Flair continues, "I allowed my personal life and the lives of my wife and children to be turned upside down for one reason. Whether it's good or bad, even the really bad, the truth has to matter, even in wrestling. My issues have been well documented over my 40-year career. The impact of drinking too much, which nearly killed me 5 years ago, has been told time and time and time again. The reason Rory, or anyone else for that matter, never heard stories of me forcing myself on anyone is simple. It never happened." Now, Flair then followed this up with another statement to Wrestling Inc. and said, quote, "To clarify, the helicopter, as it was called, is accurate. I wish I could blame it on youth, but it was a case of drinking too much and being inappropriate, and I apologize for that, and have countless times over the years. I made some bad decisions during dark periods in my life, and it is something I've spent a significant part of years I was given by the doctors in 2017 trying to make it right. I condemn assault in any way, shape, or form. I could and have written books, as have others, that covered my transgressions. I've made some terrible decisions, but I've never forced myself on anyone in any way. Period." And when it comes to Flair as well, he was removed from the WWE intro last night, as well as other things WWE have pulled regarding the Nature Boy. Ric Flair has been removed from the opening video package that airs before WWE television programming. The intro video kicked off with one of Ric Flair's signature woos, but that line was not in the video that was featured before last night's edition of Monday Night Raw. Furthermore, WWE has removed all of Flair's merchandise from WWE Shop sometime in the last few days. We know that WWE Shop had several Flair items as of last week. A search for Flair's name as of recording right now brings up 0 items. This is interesting as WWE Shop began taking pre-orders for the $999 limited edition Ric Flair Legacy replica bouts back on September 10. There are only 500 Flair Legacy bouts created, but the page has been deleted from the WWE Shop website. Now, these latest moves come after WWE removed the first episode of their animated Storytime series from Peacock and the WWE Network. The episode was removed last Friday, the day after Vice's Dark Side of the Ring series that aired the infamous WWE Plane Ride from Hell events in May 2002. So there's lots of moving pieces right now. Flair's made a statement denying this. And kind of what is odd, I must say, what is odd about it is that... And I guess you have to almost appreciate the honesty and the transparency that he's trying to convey. But when you say that the director of the 30 for 30, when his lips are moving, he's lying, and then say, but this time he was telling the truth, that doesn't really add up. That doesn't make any sense, does it? It really doesn't make any sense. But again, just because one director hadn't heard about it, or one of the people he spoke to hadn't heard about it, you think, who was involved in that 30 for 30 documentary? They were all Ric Flair's friends, or their closest confidants, people like Triple H, Shawn Michaels, his family, his loved ones. Why on earth would they say that in the middle of a thing? Oh yeah, he was inappropriate to women, or he forced himself on someone. They wouldn't say that. They wouldn't say that. And again, I don't know the answer to these situations. I don't know the answers to these allegations, but they're out there. They're out there now. And Flair, I guess, will continue to deny it. It's up to Flair to decide what he wants to do to clear his name if he feels that's necessary. Time will tell. Time will tell. But the removal that WWE has had of his name from WWE programming, it's not surprising. It's not surprising. Again, if things get cleared up, I'm sure he'll be added back. And then I guess AEW would sign him. I don't know. I don't know what that situation will look like right now. But as I mentioned before when we covered it last week, those allegations, when you put them in the different light of the alleged victim, when she's explaining it, they're horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. Let's switch gears and move back to Monday Night Raw last night. We have new women's tag team champions. Nikki Ash and Rhea Ripley are the new women's tag team champions. Last night's Raw saw Nikki and Ripley defeat Natalya and Tamina Snuka to become the new champions. This is the first title reign for Ripley and Nikki together. Natalya and Tamina held the titles for 129 days, winning them from Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler back on the May 14 edition of SmackDown. To be honest, the match was really short, really short. And I did the video yesterday, and I can't remember. You can let me know in the comment section below. I think I said I thought they might win. I think they might win, but I really, again, and it's no disrespect to Nikki Cross or anything. I'm a big Nikki Cross fan. Obviously, I am. I look at this and I think Rhea Ripley could be doing something better. I don't think she should be in a Strange Bedfellows tag team and interacting with a comedy gimmick. But I guess she's got a title. She's got a title. It's only the SmackDown Women's Championship to go for. She's won the NXT Women's Championship, Raw Women's Championship, Women's Tag Team Championship. It's only the SmackDown title to go. She might be drafted to SmackDown in the draft, and maybe she does it in the next 6 months. I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't be shocked. So who knows? But it was a title change. The women's tag team titles at this point just feel completely meaningless because there aren't real tag teams. They're not. Who did they win them off of? A tag team that was 2 singles put together in Natalya and Tamina Snuka. Who did they win them off? Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax, 2 singles put together. The times of actually having female tag teams in that division are over because they fired them all. Whether it was the Riot Squad, whether it's the Iconics, whether it's whoever. So until you actually have legitimate tag teams in there, the division's just not going to be taken seriously. And it does feel like an afterthought anyway. But congratulations, after I've just buried the division. Karrion Kross. We saw a vignette for Karrion Kross last night on Monday Night Raw, but he appeared on Main Event because he did not wrestle on the show. Now, Kross did not appear live on last night's edition of Monday Night Raw for the second week in a row. Like last week, last night's go-home edition of Monday Night Raw to Extreme Rules saw WWE air another Kross vignette. The promo included highlights from Kross's recent matches as he commented how he's pulverized everyone around him each and every week. It does feel like already And again, it's only been weeks at this point. But it feels like already that WWE are sort of going, I don't know what to do with Karrion Kross. Oh, well, why'd you call him up then in the first place? And then have him lose and then make him dress like a weird Demolition member. I really don't get it. I really don't get it. And it feels like already that, I don't know, people will say, well, Vignette hypes him up and there's nothing for him to do on the show. It's a 3-hour show. It's a 3-hour show and you can't find anything to do for Karrion Kross right now. It just screams Vince McMahon going, we need to have him something to get him over. Okay, put a mask on him and dress him up as Gladiator. Well, that hasn't worked. Okay, well, air vignettes, well, we figure this one out. It's like Aleister Black all over again, isn't it? I just don't get it. I really, really don't get it. It must be said. Let's switch gears and talk about Extreme Rules because the United States Championship match at Extreme Rules is now a triple threat match. Last night's edition of Monday Night Raw saw Jeff Hardy defeat Sheamus in a singles match. Per the stipulation prior to the match, Jeff Hardy has now earned a spot in the previously announced Sheamus versus Damian Priest United States Championship match at the pay-per-view. A table match stipulation was discussed for the United States bout at Extreme Rules, but it remains to be seen if this had been added on. I would hope that a tables match gets added on because then we would actually have another stipulation. Whether or not this is it's interesting. I'm glad that Hardy got added in because I'm just not a fan of rematches. I think we should have at least, from pay-per-view to pay-per-view, have something different. So I'm glad to see Hardy being added in. I'm glad to see Hardy being featured. But it depends if it's a tables match or not, but you kind of sometimes feel like maybe Hardy was put in there just to take the fall or to be put through the table. But I expect Damian Priest to win anyway. I don't suspect he would drop the championship anytime soon unless he's going to challenge for the WWE title. But given Big E is the champion now, I don't see that happening either. Let's talk about Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch has revealed an interesting tidbit when it comes to her return to WWE programming. Of course, she returned to WWE television at SummerSlam, but it turns out that Becky Lynch was supposed to come back to WWE much, much sooner. During a recent interview with Alex McCarthy of TalkSport, the SmackDown Women's Champion stated that she was actually supposed to return at WrestleMania 37 to confront and face Bayley. Instead, though, the man did not appear and was confronted by the Bella Twins. Now, even though things didn't work out for the man's WrestleMania return, her absence finally ended at SummerSlam, where she showed up in Sasha Banks' absence and won the SmackDown Women's Championship. So, it's an interesting one. There were lots of reports and rumors at the time, and then obviously it didn't happen, and people went, see, you got it wrong. People got it wrong. And it's that case of plans do legitimately change. I know people say that and they roll their eyes, but it's true. They do change. And it does feel a bit odd. I've seen a lot of people saying, well, why didn't that happen? Why didn't they do that? And I don't know. My only thing I can think of when it comes to that is WrestleMania this year, in the eyes of WWE, wasn't WrestleMania. And what I mean by that is it wasn't the sold-out stadium. It was a reduced capacity. And I think WWE thought, you know what? If we're going to have Becky Lynch return, why don't we do it at what this year's WrestleMania will be, which was SummerSlam, which was a stadium show which had full capacity, or at least a bigger capacity than WrestleMania. And I think that's probably why they decided to hold off in reality. I think they thought, you know what? Because again, WrestleMania was a big event this year. It was a great event. I enjoyed, especially the first night was tremendous. And the main event for both nights were really, really good. But it didn't, I think in WWE's mind, it wasn't fully WrestleMania because, again, you had fans back, but they went straight back to the Thunderdome for a while and all that kind of stuff. And I think they thought, you know what? We don't need to rush this. Maybe we should hold it to SummerSlam where we know there's going to be loads of fans and then we're going to be touring at that point as well. I think that's probably why they decided to go there. And maybe, look, she returned as a heel. If she confronted Bayley at WrestleMania, that wouldn't have happened. So maybe it was that discussion as well. There's a couple of different options there, but I guess it didn't happen. It didn't happen. And it sucks because Bayley's injured now. So we're not going to see that for a long time. Finally, let's talking about Becky Lynch. Let's talk about the Smackdown ratings. The Smackdown ratings for last Friday's show are in, and it drew an average of 2.243 million viewers on Fox. This is according to Nielsen by Showbuzz Daily. Now, this is actually down over 5% from last week's final viewership of 2.383 million viewers, but that's to be expected because, of course, last week's edition of SmackDown was the Super SmackDown episode from Madison Square Garden. SmackDown on Friday drew a 0.58 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic. This is down over 10% from last week's big 0.65 rating. Now, SmackDown ranked number 2nd in the ratings for the key 18 to 49 demographic on network television, ending a 5-week run at number 1. SmackDown ranked number 1 in the 18 to 34 demo this week for the 6th week in a row. and second in the 25 to 54 demo, ending another 5-week run at number 1-2. SmackDown came number 4 for the night in viewership on network television. It was topped by college football. Again, you're coming off of the Madison Square Garden show. I don't think it's much of a surprise, but I think WWE on the whole, again, considering they got to a point earlier this year, certainly prior to going back on the road, where they were stuck at like 1.9 for a period of time. If you look through May and June, it was like 1.9, 1.8, 1.9, 1.9, 1.8, 1.9. And again, I mentioned at the time that they wouldn't be happy with that. They certainly would not be happy with that. Since they've returned to the road, they've been consistently over 2 million. And for the past, 4 or 5 weeks, they've been at 2.2 million, which in the grand scheme of things in pro wrestling, if you were to ask someone 5 years ago, is that a good number? They'd be like, no, of course it isn't. But now they'll be very, very happy with that. So the return to the road has certainly benefited SmackDown. The return of big stars like Becky Lynch, like Brock Lesnar, etc., and Cena when he was there certainly benefited SmackDown. And it's the A show right now, and it's doing very, very well. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.